we build communities around the impact we want to make in the world? How do we get people engaged and excited to support our missions when everyone is so busy already? How do we get others to care? This season will bring you people that decide to look closer. They look where others have turned away. They are building communities to make a positive impact. I am Regina Larco, and this is #Impact. As an independent production, we are so grateful to work with sponsors that totally get us, partners that are aligned with our values. Today, we say thanks to our sponsor, the Resilience Initiative. The Resilience Initiative promotes resilience around the world through their writing, speaking, and education programs. Their new course, How to Fortify Your Resilience, is designed to help people like you discover the joy of building a resilient life through meaningful connections and a robust support system. You can find out more at #resilience.com/how-to-fortify-your-resilience. Of course, I'll put the link in the show notes as well, so you can easily find this beautiful and super inspiring course. In today's episode, I'm joined by Ricardo Parger to explore the intersection of resilience and rehabilitation through sports within correctional facilities and beyond. Born in Vienna to a Spanish mother and an Austrian father, Ricardo studied law not just to apply it, but to rethink it. He is currently pursuing a doctoral degree in the sociology of law, focusing on climate litigation. In his current roles, he manages Phönix, Training for Life, an NGO dedicated to social rehabilitation programs within the Austrian prison system, and leads the creation of an umbrella organization for mentoring programs in Austria. For his work, he received the 2021 Social Impact Award. However, his most meaningful achievement is witnessing the transformative impact of his sports programs on young people in prison. Welcome to #Impact, Ricardo.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, maybe we should let listeners in just for a sec how we first met, and that was at a lovely social entrepreneurship night at University of Vienna, where I put up a little recording booth for #Impact, and I just let people come to my recording sofa and tell me how they want to make more impact. And there you were, sitting on that sofa and sharing about your work. Just within a few minutes, I knew I want to hear more about this story. And I actually want to jump right in to your most difficult moment in your own impact journey that you kindly shared with me actually beforehand. Because when I read what you shared there with me, I felt it would give so much context and understanding to our listeners of what it actually is you are trying to do with Phönix.
Yeah, sure. I can tell you the story of when I realized what it means to work in prisons. It was actually a usual training day where my colleague Dominic and I had a training session with a group of young people in prison, and we do sports-based programs there right before people get released from prison, so they are prepared for what's awaiting them there, and we try to accompany them through the means of sports in this difficult phase of getting out of prison. And there was a journalist who wanted to interview us as trainers right after the training session. But the training session already took like 1.5 hours, 2 hours, and I wanted to freshen up before the interview and asked if I could just go to the toilet, to the bathroom of the prison real quick before coming back to the sports hall. And we don't know how prisons look from the inside, because the first thing you do when you enter a prison in Austria is you leave your phone, every digital device at the entrance. So there are no images being taken there. And today in the digital world, this is what people look at all the time. They look at pictures, videos on their phones, and what isn't on their phones or on their visual surrounding, they don't realize that much. It's not so present. So that's why the prison system is a big taboo in our society. So I was on my way to the bathroom, and I had someone walk me there because they had to lock up some doors to get me there before the interview. And when I arrived there, I was 100% sure that when I got out of the bathroom, this prison officer would await me to come out and walk me back to the sports hall. And that's where I was mistaken. I went out of the toilet and looked around, and there was nobody there to bring me back to bring me back to the sports hall. And I thought, okay, somebody will come and pick me up again, because I think the journalists may be waiting for me while they were interviewing my colleague also. But I waited 1 minute, 2 minutes, standing in a long corridor in the far away from the sports hall. It was like a 2-minute walk through this prison hall system. It's a very complex architecture also. And the light went off, and I felt completely lonely and left alone. No one could hear me. So I started to get a little nervous. And after a while, I also started to get a little panicking, like, is somebody going to get me? I mean, it's could take hours for someone to notice me there. But then I noticed a camera in the corner of the corridor, and I tried to wave at it, to shout at it, to really hit the doors real hard. And I felt so dependent on someone hearing me, but nobody came. After a while, after maybe 10, 15 minutes, somebody was actually finally noticing that I was still not in the sports hall and came to get me. But the way they picked me up there was so, I would say, numb and so dry. They just opened that door, looked me in the eye, didn't even say hello, oh, sorry, forgot you, or sorry for letting you wait, or anything. No, it was just opening that door, walking with me through that corridor, bringing me back to the sports hall, opening that door again with the keys. And I couldn't say a word. I was still kind of in a shock moment. I was even shocked by the reaction of this prison officer, who was another one, not the one that brought me there, but like a colleague of his. And then the journalists were like surprised that I took so long and asked me, are you ready now? Like, where have you been? I said, should I tell him the story of what just happened in front of everybody, in front of there was also the prison chief just standing next to us, my colleague standing there? Or is it just part of working in prisons? This losing your freedom for a period of time, being absolutely dependent on people opening doors and closing doors for you. So I decided to swallow it, continue towards the journalists' questions and listening, being full in the moment and not try to spread any anger, because I didn't want to talk from anger. At this moment, I wanted to share what we do.
And I'm so grateful that you do that here with us today now as well. Because it is so actually eye-opening what you just shared, but also something I kind of only realized as I was preparing for going into our conversation today is that I often look at community, especially now during this season of #Impact, where we focus on community building, in the context of that is something enriching and nourishing, and you're part of a certain people that share an experience as something very positive, right? And I know you do that too, as you're looking into how can you open up communities for the prisoners after they are released. And I would love for listeners to find out more about how you do that exactly. But before we do that, I actually want to just bring up this aha moment I had when I realized, as you are putting ourselves like now in a prisoner's shoes, right? You are actually part of a community, if we want, right? Where other parts of your identity are completely stripped away. And that is something I can't even imagine how that must be.
Yeah. When you talk about the parts of your identity that are stripped away, I like to refer to the word of inmate. In German, we say Insasse. In the jargon, right? The prison officers refer to prisoners as Insasse, as inmate. If we say prisoner, it's also the word of the institution is the principal notion that hides everything else that is human about these people. And this is one thing that was always at the core of what we do, is to highlight all the different aspects of the identity of our participants. Because humans have so many needs and so many feelings and so many identities and roles they play in their lives. And we try to talk about people in prison instead of inmates as much as we can. But also, when we talk to prison officers, we have to kind of get, acknowledge how they were trained and speak the same language. But when we talk publicly, we talk about participants in our sports programs, athletes. We give them the identity of an athlete because that is what they do in the sports hall. They're not being connected to what they have done in the past in the crime. This is somebody else's job. This is what the state attorney is doing in court, or the judge. We are there as their trainers, as their coaches, trying to look into the future. And therefore, we must highlight the potential in their other parts of their identity. As a father, as a brother, as a member of society, because there will come the day where they get out. And if the only way they know themselves is their existence as prisoner, what do they have left as instruments to cope with the day-to-day challenges outside?
And looking at the stats, it is quite depressing if we are looking at the status quo, right? Roughly, do you like how would you say is like a percentage of people that would get out that would then that are kind of like stuck in that spiral?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If we look at the numbers in Austria, we notice that every second person, like 50% roughly, that have been to prison commit a crime in their life after they get out. 50%. If we compare that to Norway, for example, that's only 20%, like less than half of what of the recidivism rate in Austria. So there's a big potential and a lot to do if we want to lower that number. And I have never seen any field of our society where science and reality is so far away from each other. What we are doing right now is actively ignoring the scientific proof of how we can improve the system. And it has political reasons. It has resources as reason, like lack of money for innovation. And it has cultural reasons. We are used to prisons. It is that one thing that has existed for for hundreds of years, maybe thousands of years, and it's so hard to think of alternatives. Yeah. But it's possible.
Yeah. And you and your team are working on that, right? Yeah. So who are the people behind Phönix?
The people behind Phönix are, first of all, my colleague Dominic, who has already worked in Germany during his studies as a sports pedagogue. Like he studied social work and pedagogy of sports, like how to use sports to convey skills and social skills. So he had already this experience of working with young people in prison, in a youth prison. In a youth prison in Bavaria. And I got introduced to him by a Austrian pastoral care pastor, a pastor who works in prisons, and said, yeah, I've had a young German student coming at me and asking if he could do voluntary work in our prison. And I just had met him recently in order to find out what the situation in Austria was in his prison, where the pastor works, and we got in contact, and it was like two souls meeting with a combined vision. Yeah. That was a big moment for what we want to do, because I had the legal knowledge, the basic, network in Austria, and he had the experience and the proof of concept. I didn't have to reimagine what it could look like, because he already had done it efficiently in Germany. So since then, we are a team of two people leading this organization. And then there's our trainers that came by later. Professional basketball trainers that have played in really, really high level basketball teams all over Europe. We have very inspiring players who have used sport in order to gain strength and overcome their challenges. For example, if we talk about our trainer Mo, he has fled Syria during the civil war and reinvented himself in Austria as a basketball trainer. And he can teach the people in prison so much about resilience and hope that I cannot. So Phönix wouldn't be what it is without these people.
I am Regina Larco, and this is #Impact. Today, in conversation with Ricardo Parger. How was that first moment going in one of these prisons? And I mean, maybe we should also make the connection. How did you actually start working there? Was that during your studies that you came into contact with this institution and felt, how was that first connection made, and how was that then journey from observing and thinking of that idea and then going in with Dominic and your team?
There are actually three crucial moments where I observed the problem with the prison system in Austria. The first one was during my studies. As you mentioned already, I have a Spanish mother, an Austrian father, I went to a French school in Austria, and I needed to work for some money during my university. So I applied as a dolmetsch, a translator for legal counsel for prisoners. So whenever they needed someone to talk in Spanish or make a dolmetsch service in French, I went to prison and with a legal counsel and helped out with my language skills. There I already noticed the toughness of the system, the inhumane conditions, partially in some prisons. I could go inside and notice how difficult it was to provide people access to their rights, because they would give in forms that they wouldn't understand. People often that don't speak the German language don't really know what the judge is explaining to them, because the dolmetsch there isn't very exact and precise, and that has tremendous consequences in how people feel the autonomy and their dignity. So that was the first moment where I realized, okay, there's something a little wrong here. Why do I, as student, have to explain him now the exact consequences of his sentence? And I didn't even finish my training. Why isn't there like a system that really provides them with the access to law that is able to do that? The second moment was during my apprenticeship in the court. So I worked at a court, and that's what you do if you want to become a lawyer, for example, or a judge. You train, and you're somehow an assistant to the judge. And during this period, I also had the duty of listening to the conversations of visitors. So to make sure that they wouldn't talk about things that are relevant to the ongoing procedure in court. And during this apprenticeship in court, also, I used to eat at the canteen, where the judges and the state attorneys and the prison officers would eat their lunch every day. And the people cooking for them were actually prisoners, people in prison. And there I got to know them, and I started conversations with them, just saying hello from human to human, becoming friends over time. And after 1 or 2 months, sometimes they gave me an extra coffee, and my colleagues would ask, like, how did you do that? Why do you get a free coffee after lunch? And just, I don't know, it's just take a moment and talk to them and see how they're doing. And I remember them telling me, especially one man, the amount of boredom in prison is unbelievable. There's nothing to do for years, and they spend it just waiting. That struck me. The third moment was when I visited a pastor who has once taught in my school, and gave an insight for young students. He showed me around in another prison. And during that tour, I had the opportunity to talk to actual teenagers that were stuck in prison, and I asked them, how's it like? What would you like to change if you could change one thing? Is sports something you would like to do? And they say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're so bored, it's nothing to do. Please support us somehow. And when I finished the tour, we passed by a door where you could look into. And I noticed it's a sports hall, completely empty in the middle of the day. There's nothing happening there. Nobody inside. And I asked the pastor who has showed me this prison, why is there nobody in there? Right? I mean, why couldn't you use this room for social programs, rehabilitation, skill training, or just to make time go by faster here? And he said, well, we are missing the resources, so there's nothing happening. Also, it was the time of Corona where many programs have been shut down, and after the COVID pandemic was nearly over, the resources to reinstate more programs were missing. And it's not only a program in that one prison. after a time, I realized it's systemic. The infrastructure for sports and the prisons in Austria are mostly, or I would say most of the time, empty. And that's just a scandal in my eyes.
And then you walked in there. And of course, it was not an easy thing to do, to even get there and to even be welcomed in. But then one prison did, right? There always has to be that one prison that actually opens the doors and gives you a shot and say, okay, we are willing to try this out. And that was in Korneuburg. So what happened? What happened when the doors opened? How did you manage to build that the trust with the people that got to participate, but also with the staff there?
Well, that's a really good question, and it was a long journey to get there. It took me 1 year of convincing to do in order to open up the most closed system our society has, which is the prison system. At first I thought, maybe if I start from the top, if I contact the top dog of our prison system, which is the Minister of Justice, maybe they would open up the doors for me on the levels below. So I applied even for some job at the ministry where I had to somehow get close to the minister, and had my little Phönix concept paper in my bag, and wasn't really interested in that job. I think it was like communications of ministry, something like that. And during that interview, I just picked out my paper and said, by the way, there's a lack of sports programs in the prisons. Can we maybe talk about their dear Minister of Justice? And she said, that's a nice idea, and I'm really open for that, but you're totally at the wrong place with me. I know I'm the minister, but if you really want to change something in the prisons, like everyday life, you have to talk to the Department of Correctional Facilities and Prisons. Okay. I said, can you give me an address? Who is the person that I need to talk to? And she said, yeah, that's this and this department. Then the second step was to go there, get an appointment, present the idea. And again, I met the highest official deciding on rehabilitation programs in prisons. And they told me, that sounds lovely. Let's make this happen. But, before I can let you go in there, you have to find someone that is open to that in a prison. So I can recommend you maybe a name or two where you can maybe ask if that's an idea. And that's all I can do right now. So the next step was really to find the prison chief that would be open for that. So after a few weeks, again, I had an appointment at the prison of Korneuburg that was known for its quite progressive way of dealing with the people there. And there I met this prison chief, 2 meters tall, very experienced, I think he's around 55, 60 years old, and has seen a lot in his life. And I connected with him through sports, actually. He's a passionate sailor, and I have had the opportunity to also dive in the world of sailing and water sports, and we connected on that level, and he was open to listening to me and to my idea of introducing this pilot program of Phönix and trying things out there. But again, what he told me, I was surprised. He says, I know you've talked to the chief of the department, you've talked to the minister, and now you're talking to me. But in the end, the people you have to convince, it's not only me, it's all my employees here in the prison, everyone who works here and will open the doors for you. Make them open the doors for you. You have to convince them in order to do that. So that's what we're working on ever since. creating trust with the people that work in prisons. And trust is, I learned, the most important currency if you want social change to happen. And it takes time to build trust.
And I'm silent because as I'm listening, I'm wondering how many times, the people that will listen to this now have actually been in front of closed doors, right? How often are we trying to make our own impact and we are shut off or told that it's not possible, or they give us another name and say, try there, right? I think all too often we humans also then take the easier road that would be to give up, and say like, okay, I've tried. Wasn't meant to be. Maybe the time is not right. But I feel really encouraged by what you share, to keep actually looking and knocking on those closed doors and keep asking. Because then when we look at then what happened next and the pilot program you did run in Korneuburg, and I looked into your impact report that you have, that I encourage everyone to just go and see as well how you are documenting also the impact that you're making. And what struck me most there was the quotes of the voices of Phönix, as you call it, right? The people that participated then in the programs, the people themselves, the people in prison. So there's one, and I'll try to quickly, beautifully translate it. I don't know if I can. Ich habe im Training gelernt, was Zusammenhalt bedeutet und wie man sich Tipps gibt, statt sich gegenseitig runterzumachen. So I learned in this training what it means to stick together and how you give each other advice and encourage each other instead of dragging each other down. Yeah. How was it perceived? How do you feel? Like, and you lovingly shared that before. I hope it's okay that I share that, what you said off the record, that like the participants, the athletes that were taking part in your pilot program in Korneuburg, they saw it all, they saw the messy start and they were like with you on it, and gave you a lot of feedback as well, and they were the first ones, right? It's always really special, that pilot. But as you're now looking into the future, as you're looking now you're running these programs in other prisons as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We started out with a little knowledge about how it used to work in Bavaria and my legal background. So during COVID, I also did a fitness trainer, let's say, fitness trainer course, how to learn the basics of teaching health exercises. And I started with that. And I knew if we want to make this work, we have to create or co-create the program together. There's a saying in the social enterprise field, which is, if it's about us, don't do it without us. So we asked them, how would you like to do this sports program that will serve you later too? What things do you need to learn so that you have the confidence that you will find your way after your release? And 6 months, we trained twice a week and we observed, okay, where do they have fun? Where do they build community? Where do they feel empowered? We have tried over 10 ways, 10 sports, from hockey to soccer, until finally we installed basketball baskets in the hall that weren't there before. So when we first trained basketball, we noticed they're all starting from scratch. Nobody is the pro here because soccer is way more established in Austria than basketball. So we didn't have like one participant excelling in this sport and the other one starting from zero. We had everybody from a very low level becoming good really, really fast. And that really was so moving to see how fast they were building a team and they were learning together and encouraging each other and having fun, and also gaining this inner strength of knowing I can get better in every part of life. This is actually what we are most proud of, to be able to show them, if you can get better here in this sports hall, there's other places where you will get better later. We're not giving up. That's something that they need to hear sometimes, even after they have committed crimes and have had a rough start in life. There's always room for improvement, and they just need support.
And how does that then, and I teasered about that right in the beginning when we started our conversation, how does that then translate for them as they are then released from prison? How do you help them find a community where they can continue to feel included and seen and return into society?
So we are convinced that rehabilitation takes place partially within the prison system, preparing them to get released. And the second half is really the first months, the first time after their release. And this connection and to build that bridge is the most difficult part also, because it's a big crack in their life. You lose from one day to another the whole stability. And that's why we want to accompany them with our sports programs, with our offers, and with Phönix. What we have learned is that so many things are happening after the release that they're losing contact with us pretty easily. They have to find a job, a place to live, reconnect with their family members, and try to survive out there. So we had the opportunity to be very close to some of the people in prison who got out, and then try to connect them with other sports clubs quickly so that they would continue their sports career later and find connection to the society. And when we did that, my colleague Dominic and I were accompanying a 16-year-old participant to a sports club, and it felt like this moment when I remembered when my parents would walk me to the sports course. I don't know what it was, jiu-jitsu or maybe a swimming training. And I was really looking back at them. Are you going to wait for me? Or what if I don't like it here? And just to have this security of somebody accompanying you and giving you the strength. They don't bite here. It's going to be fun, and if not, it's okay. We find another spot for you. It's just for trying it out. Many people don't have that. They didn't have caring parents who would have the resources to find a training spot for you, to pay the fees for the equipment and the participation fees. They didn't have the social network to know, where can I bring my kids to a sports club and give them the stability that these facilities provide, that these courses and communities can offer, even when it gets tough in life. I had the privilege of a lot of sports activities in my youth that gave me that stability, even in tough times, when school wasn't going so well, when my parents got divorced, or when my girlfriend broke up with me. So it can really help to know, whatever happens at this and this day, at that hour, I will see my friends in the swimming hall, or I will get back to my soccer training and regain strength and refill my batteries. So this is where we noticed, okay, they need support in getting and staying on. that's what we're working on together now. We want to create an own sports-based program after the release that is co-created with them. And at the same time, also providing the possibility to train in other sports clubs. That's what's the next step for Phönix.
And I'm excited to keep following your journey, to see it all evolve. And I encourage our listeners as well to follow your journey. And I will put all the links so that you can connect with Ricardo and the team on all your channels in our show notes, as always. But Ricardo, you know it. I won't let you go until you go through the quick fire round. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Making an impact means?
Making an impact means leaving a better world behind than you found it.
Who inspires you in the way they build community?
I thought about this real hard listening to the other podcast episodes, and the number of people that have inspired me is endless. It's just so many wonderful people have showed me many things that made everything possible in my life. I really like to say I stand on the shoulders of giants, and it's not only the people we know from the books and the history, but it's ordinary people, ordinary and everyday people doing extraordinary things. If I look at one of our trainers talking to our participants and the hope they inspire in our participants, it's totally illuminating to me. Or if I hear the grandmother of my girlfriend, how she took care of family members all her life and caring, it's the most inspiring thing I know.
I can relate to that. Yeah. And what could everyone do right now after they listen to this episode to make the world a better place?
Right now.
Mm.
We live in difficult times right now, so it's a bit much to expect that people get up and contribute to a better world, seeing all the challenging things that are happening at this time. I would say be there for one another and be there for yourself. Especially in this social enterprise world, we often try to sacrifice ourselves for a big mission and vision, and we don't care about maybe our resources that much, about our relationships, friendships. And I think on the one hand, right now, take a big breath and feel yourself again. And on the other hand, think of the people that you want to thank for what they've done to enrich your life. And thank them.
Oh, that's so beautiful and so powerful. And I encourage everyone to do just that, just like Ricardo just said. Thank you so much for this, Ricardo, to give us an insight into such a complex topic that is so stigmatized, and to open these conversations. And I'm very grateful for you and your team for doing that day in and day out. So thank you for being here today and for all the work you do.
Thank you so much for doing the podcast and shedding light on these important topics. I think it's important to be able to talk about these taboos. And with you inviting me here, you shed some light on the prison system in Austria, and that is part of the change.
thank you for joining us today. And I want to say huge thanks one more time to the Resilience Initiative and their impactful course, How to Fortify Your Resilience. Make sure to check it out. I'll add the link in the show notes so you can just head over and get all the goodness that's inside that course. It's so meaningful to team up with partners that truly get what we are all about here at #Impact. So big thanks to Watson, who reached out to us to support our podcast and his beautiful course over at the Resilience Initiative. If you want to team up with us and share about an exciting project you are currently working on, you can do so. Head over to #impact.com/sponsor and you will find out how you can do just that. I talk to you soon. Bye.